We are really excited to be here with you. Colleen and I are just going to sort of tag team a little bit here on some of these slides. So I just wanted to start out, obviously I'm at USC and Colleen is at UCLA. And we are part of ARINS, which is the Association of Residency Administrators. Many of you also know us as the coordinators of the program. And we're going to definitely be changing gears a little bit here, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the logistics and the nuts and bolts of the actual process and applications and those types of things. But the first thing that I wanted to touch on a little is something for the earlier students, and it was something talked about a little bit earlier, but making sure that you know yourself. I know that it was mentioned about not trying to put a square peg into a round hole, and taking the time to use some of those advisors in your medical school, some of the different things that they offer to really find out what kind of learner you are, what kind of things motivate you, what kind of support you have and you need. Because as you heard throughout the morning, that important thing about fit. Well, you're not going to know what kind of program fits you if you don't know yourself. And so that is always the first thing I talk about with every single medical student that comes into my office. And so I wanted to make sure to mention it today. We want you to talk to others. We want you to use the information that is available to you. Colleen, when you go ahead and take over for a minute.
Yeah, just to reiterate what has been said repeatedly, it's all about fit. Dr. Giannotta this morning mentioned that there are 115 training programs, and Dr. Ponce mentioned that the most prestigious program might not be the best fit for you. So to really study, who you are and what type of program might be the best for you. And then to do your homework, to really look at all of the programs. Most of us updated our websites this past year and have videos of our faculty or residents talking a little bit about programs, but to really research the programs and know yourself so that you can find the best fit for you.
Absolutely. So now something near and dear to our hearts as the people that are involved with all the logistics of this. Deadlines. Deadlines are very important, and they are constantly changing, especially because of the environment with COVID right now and just the uncertainty of what everything is going to look like. And so you can be the most amazing applicant that has ever been seen in neurosurgery, but if you don't get your application in on time, no one's going to see it. And so that is a lot of where we come in to play, is making sure that you're making those connections, that you are paying attention to those tiny little details. I know that you're going to be overwhelmed with information. At the end of our talk, we have a few slides that are just a bunch of websites, and I know that'll be available to you guys afterwards. But places where you want to be paying attention. Use your smartphones, put big reminders, put alarms, put things on your calendar so that you make sure that you are not only finding those deadlines out now, but keeping on top of any changes that might come into play. Because if you don't have a complete application in on time to ARIS when it goes out to the programs, you really are damaging your opportunity to be seen by the most places. Please know that you can email if you have specific questions. Questions that are not helpful is, what can I do to be a better applicant to your program? To send to a coordinator, because that's too broad. There's no magic formula. I can't give you a list of these 5 things that if you do these, you're going to match into our program. But if you want to know, how many rotations do your residents, or how much vacation time do your residents get? I can answer that. That's a very specific question. If you want to know something about the interview and how we run things, we can answer those. Please feel free to email. But do remember that sometimes it'll take us a couple days to get back to you. So, if you haven't heard back, it's okay to email again, but be polite And then when we're asking you a question, also try and make sure to respond quickly. Treating everyone with respect is important. I know that it was mentioned earlier about veto power. Many coordinators get veto power in their programs, so be nice. Don't be annoying, as was said for the sub-Is. It's important because you're going to be interacting with us for 7 years. It was mentioned I usually cry at graduation every year because I get very close to the residents who are in my program. It's my program, it's my residents. I have a great deal of pride and ownership in that. And I think most programs have a coordinator who feels that way. Colleen?
Yes, I agree. We become very attached to our residents very early on. About the complete application, we want you to submit everything that you have control over early to make sure that you're in the first review, if at all possible. I know that we've had students in the past who have held their applications because they haven't had every letter of recommendation. But chairs and faculty have been doing a much better job these last few years of submitting their letters earlier and on time for your submission. But if you have a complete application, but not every letter, I would encourage you to go ahead and submit it and just put that it's pending and who you're expecting that letter to be from. It is early on now, but you might want to consider starting to think about who your letter writers might be, who might be best able to write about your best attributes. And Eris, it's the opening hasn't, they haven't determined their opening time, but this past year, they opened a little bit later in October. So we had a shortened review period. So if you, at all possible, just make sure your applications are complete. As far as responding quickly, when we extend interview invitations to interview, you should definitely accept those as quickly as you can. If you find that you have a scheduling conflict, please also cancel quickly so that we can offer that spot to one of your colleagues. And definitely reiterating what Kathy said about being respectful. And I know earlier in Dr. Zada's talk, he said about interpersonal skills being very high. We have had applicants who have been great on paper. They interviewed well. The faculty and residents all love them. And then we've gotten feedback from a physician extender or a patient coordinator about an interaction that might not have been the most positive. So we recognize that medical students, as our residents, also get fatigued. So we know when you're tired, but always just try to put your best foot forward.
Absolutely. So we're just gonna, we wanna make sure we get through some of these. So just so that you know from our perspective, our goal is to help the program. The entire program's goal is to prepare the next generation of neurosurgeons, right? For patient care, for research, for all of those things. So to educate and support the residents and to ensure an optimal training experience as much as we possibly can. And then to graduate the residents that matched into the program. We want everyone to be successful. And that's part of the reason that we, want to take so much time and effort into finding those people to match in the first place, because we want to make sure that as everyone is progressing through the program, that everyone has the best support and the best opportunities to be able to get all the way through. And one of the ways that you can do that is by using the resources at your home institution. The program director, the faculty, the residents, us, the administrators and coordinators, your student affairs office and advisors. Now, some of you are going to say, well, I don't have a home program. And so there are definitely people that you can reach out to in other programs. I have spent lots of time talking with students that don't have home programs. Reach out to maybe a resident that went to your same medical school that's already matched somewhere, and talk to them as a starting point, and then have them connect you with people in their program and sort of get an adopted program. For those of you, we're going to talk about sub-Is in just a minute, you know, you're able to do one away rotation this year, and so you're going to have a place where you can do that, make that your adopted home program. Use those resources and those people to get the advice that you want. So I'm going to let Colleen talk a little bit about the current guidelines, just briefly.
Okay, so this year right now, medical students are allowed to do one externship starting in August 1st or after. And they can do 1 or 2 rotations at their home programs of 4 weeks. So this has a minimum of 4 weeks. UCLA is unique in that we have 3-week clerkships, but we've gotten an exception to extend for that 4th week. I think it's a pretty wordy slide. Kathy, is there anything else that you want to make sure that we cover?
No, I just wanted to make, so this is from the Society of Neurological Surgeons, and this is something that every program is being encouraged to follow these guidelines. And so some of the things that we have moving forward is there's going to be more guidance coming from the Society of Neurological Surgeons. They are actually in the process right now of surveying program directors and chairs, the program managers and coordinators, and all of last year's applicants. So 3 separate surveys with similar questions, but geared towards each group. And that information is going to be used to create the rest of the guidelines for this year. So what are interviews going to look like this year? That is the biggest question that everyone is asking. And the answer is nobody knows yet. So just like you don't know yet, we don't know yet. And so they are working, though, to get as much data as possible to make sure that we can best inform that. And how do we keep some of the benefits, even in future years? It was much, much cheaper for all applicants and programs. I didn't have to pay expensive interview dinners, receipts that come into me, and also the time to travel. And so that is definitely a huge thing. So we just want to finish up and have time for a couple of questions, but there are a ton of online resources, and I think these slides will be available to you guys afterwards, so you don't have to memorize all of these. But from the Society of Neurological Surgeons, there are a lot of different medical student resources. There is neurosurgerymatch.org, which also has a lot of great information. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with all of these. The AANS and the CNS, the 2 big professional societies for neurosurgery. And then lastly, just a lot of general information from ARIS and NRMP, and then the ABNS and the ACGME. So I really just, we have so much, there's so much great information out there, and you're going to probably be overwhelmed by some of it. But know that we are here to try and help as much as we can. And each program has someone like me, like Colleen, that it's required. They have to have someone that helps with all of those logistics. And so if you have questions related to those kinds of things, we're definitely great people to reach out to.
Hey everyone, Ryan Rad here from Neurosurgerytraining.org. If you like that video, subscribe and donate to keep our content available for medical students across the world.